lights, I just do, or I just do lights, I just do mids, and I just do darks. I will blur that. Sometimes I'll incorporate some darks in with my lights or some darks in with my mids because I want them to blend and blur together. Like if I want, so I'm thinking about the values, I'm thinking about toning the paper, but I'm also thinking about the shapes and the edge quality of the shapes. So if I want some blurry trees in the back and they're mid-value, well, I'm gonna try to drop those in. Even though I'm mostly focused on lights, I'm gonna start dropping in some of those trees in the back because I want the edges. Do I want the edges hard, soft, lost, or a broken edge? So there's a ton of stuff I'm thinking about as I'm painting, but that's the gist of it, So basically I'm thinking about 1,000 things. Yeah, no, I just, no, and the more you paint, the more it just comes intuitive, right? I got a little message that says, this meeting is being recorded. And I got to put, got it. Okay, I got it. Okay. So anyways.
Sorry about that. I forgot that I recorded and I forgot to press the button in the beginning.
Oh, no worries. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start toning the paper, as I said, and I want a variety of edges. So down, and also the paper's curling, right? So down here, there's no whites, so I might as well just spray it down, and that'll help kind of get the paper to kind of settle down a little bit. And up in the sky, I'm not going to have too much whites, but why don't I just wet the entire sky? Well, I'm going to try and create some really cool textures up there. So I'm going to spatter some water up there, and I'm going to use a tissue, and we're just going to play, and we're going to have a good time. Somebody said watercolor should be fun. I don't know who said that, but I'm going to see if I can have a good time. And I'm going to wet this part of the sky. And now I'm not going to wet anything that's going to be white, or I'm going to try to avoid anything that's white. So I know the top of the barn is not actually white. Maybe there's the left side of the silo is going to be white. So I'll go around that. But the rest of this is not white. And I want some of these trees to be blurry. So I'm going to just wet these areas here. All right. And then all down here, I can just go ahead and wet that. Okay. So I've wet the back. I've wet a large portion of the front just to get the party started. I have some clips here. It's not going to move on me. It's fine. It's all, see how it kind of, it's no longer curling on me anymore. Okay, so let's have some fun. So I've got a variety of brushes. You saw I was using a 1/2 inch Joe Miller Pseudo Sable. I'm an ambassador of Cheap Joe's. So let me try some of the brushes out. I like that brush. I've got a bunch of Escoda brushes here. So these are all Escoda brushes. My favorite is the Escoda Perla number size 12. It's just got a needle nose tip to it. And it's very stiff, very pointy. And all my brushes are synthetic, just like, Bob Ross. The Bob Ross shirt here says, everybody needs a friend. He's got his big squirrel on his shirt. So I don't use squirrel brushes because I don't want squirrels to get hurt so I can enjoy my paint. So I use all synthetic, but also the synthetics, they just last a long time. And they've got a super, super snappy point to them. And they've just come a long ways. I guess in the past, they didn't release moisture as well as maybe the natural hair bristle brushes. But now the synthetics are just super, super nice. And again, you cannot get such a snap to a natural hair bristle brush. This thing will snap back to a point every time I use it. And I like it so much, I actually have 2 of them. I use 2 of them. I got one that's a newer brush that has a super needle nose point to it. And I've got another one that I beat the heck out of. It's an old brush and I just use it to kind of soften edges and to integrate colors. So I love these. Now I would recommend, and with synthetic, you can also they don't all have to be snappy. Like for example, I have this other brush. This is a Escoda Prado. So it's a little softer. So I have some brushes that are super stiff and snappy. I have some that are a little softer. So this is the Prado 16. So I got some that are smaller, I got some that are bigger, but all my brushes have a nice point. And I also have even softer brushes like the Ultimo. Escoda Ultimo is just like super soft, like a squirrel brush. So I have a variety of different stiffness and snappiness to my bristles in different sizes. I got some smaller, I got some bigger, and but they're all got a nice point to them. Okay, and then everybody asked about this brush. This is a faux squirrel, F-A-U-X, faux squirrel, so a fake squirrel synthetic reservoir brush by Dynasty. and I think it's a 12. This actually might be a size 10. So it's got a fat part to it, so I can kind of fill in with the fat part. And then it's got a pointy part, so I can get, you know, line work with the pointy part. All right. And I just beat the heck out of that too. So anyways, so there's the brushes I'll be using. Okay, let's play. Okay, and on the palette, let me just, I'm sure people are wondering about the colors and stuff. So there's my palette. It's a John Pike palette. I've used lots of different palettes. I probably got like a dozen different palettes. And I work really, really wet. I just wet everything down. And you can go on my website. On my website, I have videos on all my materials, and I'll go through all the colors and all the manufacturers. And I've got all my different brushes and the easel and how I can tilt, you know, how I can use this easel and tilt it around and all that stuff. It's all on my website. And I've got videos about how I work with values and how I work with, you know, and how I, you know, all that stuff. I got free videos on my website. So I've got, you know, warm to cool earth tones, and I've got some white gouache right here, Da Vinci white gouache. And so I'm going to be using that as well. Okay. Okay. So we wet the back, we wet portions of the front, we spatter some water on the top. I'm going to get this Reservoir brush by Dynasty. Basically, I just want to get the most unruly, crazy brush I can. And this is a pretty crazy brush, right? So if you got an old Chinese brush painting brush that's just bristles are all crazy, that's the brush for you. Just a really crazy brush. And I'm going to grab some gray color. So I'm going to grab some burnt sienna, grab some ultramarine blue, grab some gouache, and there, oh boy, that was looking ugly. Let's use it. Okay. And then we'll throw that on there. Oh, that's pretty thick. Let's throw some more water. All right. Now we're playing. And you want to be really careful in the beginning stages, right? Oh.
Did you say gouache?
Gouache, G-O-U, yeah, gouache.
It's opaque watercolor.
And we'll spatter some water on that. We'll come back to it later and play with it more later. All right, so we're getting the sky started there, and we'll just grab this brush here, and we'll keep it nice and soft around here so that things will really pop along this barn. This is not going to be white. This is not white. This is not white. What's white? What's white? What's white? That's what I was going to say, right? Trying to think about what is white. Now we've got everything pretty wet down here. And if we want some background trees, maybe I don't want any like really bright whites on the edge of my paper. So we'll do that. So if we want some really bright, or we want some blurry trees, let's grab, my favorite color is Queen Gold. So I grab some Queen Gold, throw that in there. Now these trees maybe will be kind of blurry because it's hitting, you know, wet on wet, right? So some distant background trees. All right. And we'll throw some water on that. Okay. Whew. Is this fun? I wish you guys, hope maybe you guys at home who are watching through Zoom are painting along with me. Or maybe you're like, no way, this guy's nuts. Okay, so now notice that it's out of control up here, but look at how much control I have right here. So I am thinking, you know, where do I want control? Where do I not want control? So maybe the roofs of some of these cars, look at a nice, bright, hard edge that I was able to keep there, right? Because I didn't wet it down there. So I was showing some control. I know it looked like I was being all crazy, but there was some areas, and maybe just the top of the car has got some whites. And if I lose some, it's all right too. Okay, let's see. Is the barn door, it's not going to be white. Maybe a little highlight. See, I'm being, so areas, some areas I'm really tight, and some areas can be real loose. Okay. Okay, what's white? What's white? What's white? What's white? Okay. A nice green is Queen Gold with some indigo. Look at that beautiful green. Got two brushes.
I didn't hear that. Quinn Gold with what?
Indigo.
Oh, thank you.
What color do we want the cars? Maybe there's a highlight in the hood too. I'll just make all the cars gray. All right, just toning the paper. Now the silo, if we look at it, it's, you know, it's round, right? So it's going to be darker here, and as it moves around, it's going to get lighter and lighter, but it's got texture on it. So I'm using the side of a nice stiff synthetic brush, using the side of it, and that gives me that dry brush, you know, whereas a softer brush, I kind of feel kind of goes into the texture, where the nice stiff brush just kind of goes right across the surface and leaves that nice skip mark. Oh, we're just toning everything. We're being too careful here. Let's.
You ever use hot press, David?
I've tried it like once, like years ago. So no, I don't have any experience with hot press. Is that, I know you use a variety of paper, David. Is that something you enjoy?
Actually, I like Bristol board. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what you could do with the hot press, whether like a Bristol board.
Yeah. I have some friends who use, God, what is it? It's like a aqua board or something. And she does pet portraits with it. And you know, I do a lot of these misty lake scenes sometimes. And I just tried that. And it was pretty challenging. I thought, is, you know what it is? It's getting used to it. It's not like that one paper is better than another. It's just they all have a different feel to them, and you have to play with it and to see what it'll do for you. Like the first time I used Fabriano, I didn't like it. I was like, wow, this paper, it's more sensitive. It's like when I was doing Chinese brush painting. You know, you could use, oh, look at all these beautiful edges of these trees over here. Ooh. So anyway, so I did Chinese brush painting. I was using a paper, since I was new to Chinese brush painting, I was using a paper that gave me a lot of control. You know, I could really control my shapes. But I noticed like the masters were using this paper where it just was really hard to control. But they were so skilled that they use it not to challenge themselves, but they could get some really beautiful integrations of colors and stuff. So if you learn to use it, it was actually better. And I'm finding the same thing with Fabriano. Like it's more sensitive. And what I mean by more sensitive is you can lift the color. You can lift the color off much easier on Fabriano versus like arches. So I started using arches. Arches, you have just lots of control, and it's just a workhorse of a paper, and nothing wrong with it. But and so it depends on the approach. Like if I want to do layers after layers after layers and glazes after glazes after glazes without disturbing the previous layer, I probably use arches. If I'm going to do spontaneous, fresh, in the one go with minimal layers and layers and layers and trying to do that kind of thing, I'm going to use Fabriano. I just get amazing textures. I can, you know, and just fun things. And I think of watercolor as having a conversation. Like you are saying, hey, watercolor, let's do this. I want this kind of a cloudy effect, or I want this blurry kind of a tree. And then the paper might respond, having that conversation, the paper might respond. Nope, we're not going to do that. And then you have to respond. You go, okay, Mr. Watercolor, well, let's, you know, I kind of work with what it gives you, right? Have that conversation with the watercolor. You have much more of an interesting conversation with the watercolor with Fabriano versus with like arches. Like if you're a control freak and you just really want to have control, I think arches would be the way to go. If you, you know, if you're working with watercolor, I mean, and again, I don't know all the papers out there. But if you want, you know, more happy accidents, then I think Fabriano. I mean, look at the cool stuff that's going on already. And then I'm gonna mess this up with some more paint here because we're just gonna see what happens. I love the sky, now I ruined it. That's what I do. Maybe waited a little bit longer, waited a little too long. If I would have went faster while things were wet, that darker color that I put in there would have integrated it better into some of those areas that I'd put in previously. Like when I did it plein air, I was going much faster. Going a little slower now. Can you tell? There, that's cool. Kind of help the tissue integrate it a little bit, let the water integrate it a little bit. Wild. Do that a little bit. Fun. All right. So again, toning the paper, but again, I'm using a variety of values, but mostly I'm trying to just tone it and keep it mostly light. It's going to get much, much darker. Okay.
Just to let anybody know that's chatting on the chat bar. I cannot see the chat bar on my end right now. So if somebody wants to answer those questions from the club or something, or if you're asking him a question, David a question, just unmute yourself and just ask it. Because I don't have a capability right now to see what you guys are chatting about. Just the way I have it set up right now. If we do take a break, I'll look at the see and then I'll go look at the chat.
I think because I'm the host or whatever, co-host now, that I have the option of looking at the chat and stuff, which of course I'm not looking at because I'm busy painting.
That's no problem. Don't you keep on doing what you're doing. You're doing great. I just want to make people know, just so that
Sure,
they know
sure.
that why I'm not answering them.
Yeah, I understand. I just didn't want them to get mad at you because you were trying to help me out. All right, so now let's get some color in here. And again, I'm going to use white gouache. If I lose some whites here and there, it's all right because I can come back and do it with some gouache. Trying to keep a little sparkle of some highlights along that fence and things. All right, and then down here. Now look at how I can kind of lift it out if I want a little bit. I'm just playing and just trying to see what kind of effect I can get. Maybe it was a little bit too hard edged in all those areas. So I'm playing around.
This is Mary, and I'm wondering if you could tell us when you use that gouache, so we can see what you're doing with it. I think you mentioned it once.
Sure, you see I'm over here on the palette. This is the gouache right here. So every time you see me going right here, this is the gouache right here. So I'm using gouache right now.
Okay.
And it's not just pure gouache, it's gouache with a bunch of mud. All right. And now we're down into the field here. And notice I've got the board tilted at a diagonal. So it's tilted at like a 30 degree diagonal, but it's constantly changing. So I rarely work flat. I'm always, so like right now it's flat. I've been working like a 5-10 degree and then like a 15-20 degree diagonal. All right. And that just to help create a sense of movement, get the colors to flow, let the water work its magic, see what happens. All right. I like to work also, if there's warm colors, I like to work warm to cool, light to dark. All right. So here I am in the field and I'm just toning the paper, starting with warm. So that happens to be like a bismuth vanadate yellow, which is kind of like a Windsor lemon. And then I'm going to grab my Quinn Gold, and there's some alizarin crimson in there too. And I'll spatter some water just because it's too dry and I like texture. And you can probably tell that I like to start kind of loose and out of control. And as the painting progresses, I get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and identify things more and more and more. But I like to start loose. My favorite watercolors are watercolors that show the beauty of the medium, show, you know, the integrations and the unique textures unique to watercolor. But also, I also like parts of the painting to show the skill of the artist and show they have some control over the medium. So I like to show the beauty of the medium, the unique textures, integrations of color, the interminglings that you get, and then also show, you know, the skill of the artist. Can they control the medium when they want to? And you know, some areas tighter, some areas looser, things like that. And there's that Quinn Gold with some of the indigo in it. And notice my brush strokes are all moving in the direction of going towards the vanishing point off here, this direction. So the lines of the field are going this direction. So that's where how my hand's going. It kind of went from lighter, you know, warmer, so the yellows to reds and oranges to more of some bluish greens. So I'm getting kind of darker as I kind of move towards the bottom of the paper, and all the strokes are kind of moving this direction. There. Already it's starting to look a little bit like the other one. Okay. And there's some happy accidents, texture.
Your board attached to an easel, or what is the backing of that? How are you?
Yeah, and that's what I was saying.
That?
I've got so many materials and things, but it's all on my webpage. But let me just,
okay.
I'll just show you really quick. Yeah. So this is the same thing I used when I painted with you guys up in September. This is my outdoor plein air easel right here. And so it's the Gorilla easel on a Manfrotto. It doesn't have to be Manfrotto, any kind of tripod that has a ball joint. So the ball joint allows this to swivel in any direction. So it's a Gorilla easel on a camera tripod that has a ball joint. The ball joint is what's crucial. The ball joint, and of course the Gorilla easel. The Gorilla easel snaps onto any camera tripod. So obviously when I'm outdoors, I extended the legs. When I'm indoors, I bring the legs up and I just set it right on my table.
Thank you. That's good.
Yeah, right away when I started painting, like actually I took an Alvaro workshop and I was like, you know, it'd be really nice if I could do this. I was like, why hasn't anybody invented this? That's what I'm going to do when I get really good at watercolor. I'm going to invent, you know, this kind of a thing where I can tilt it on a ball joint. And then I saw that Gorilla easel had that. I was like, oh, sweet. So yeah, I can't believe I haven't seen more artists. I haven't seen anybody else work like this. And it's like, man, why isn't every watercolorist working like this? Because in watercolor, at least me, I never work flat. Like I said, I'm always tilting it this way and this way, letting the colors run across. I just love it. Okay, so now everything's tilted. How did I do as far as preserving the whites? Well, maybe I didn't get an A, but let's see. Flip that, lay it a little flatter. Let's see, left some whites here, a little sparkle of white here, a little white there, white on the roofs. I think I did fine. Okay, so now we're going to start getting darker, and then we're going to start getting tighter. Okay, so let's get my two brushes. Now I know everything's got variety of moisture on there, and so I'm going to be more, again, having that conversation with watercolor. I got to be sensitive to the surface I'm working on, you know, whether I'm working on Fabriano or Arcturus or Hahnemühle paper. They all got a different feel, and then based on how much moisture is on the paper. One of the free videos on my website talks about consistencies of paint, you know, very transparent consistencies or very thick consistency paint, and then the surface you're working on. Is it dry paper? Is it moist, damp, wet? Is it shiny wet? or is it dull wet? Depending on the moisture quality of the paper and the consistency of paint you have in your brush, you're going to get different results. And so, you know, look at the videos if you want. I think they'll be helpful. Yeah, just got to be sensitive. So right now I know this is already wet, so I don't need a lot of moisture on that brush, because we know greater moisture follows less moisture, right? So I'm going to be very cognizant of the moisture content on my brush. See, I can see it, and I do a little test mark. I didn't go right here. I did a test mark to see how much it's going to blur out. And I was like, okay, I can see it's pretty wet right there. I don't want a blurry edge of this. So maybe I'll just start down here. I'll just kind of test mark. Okay, I got some control down there. Okay, and I'm going to put my hand on here because I just like to have my hand resting on here, and it's going to leave a bunch of handprints, and it's okay because I know I can muck around with it later. So it's okay. I'm going to go ahead and start identifying this. So this is that pool right here. It's got gouache in it. It's got burnt sienna. It's got ultramarine blue. So it's kind of a gray color. I'll come over here and grab some of that mess of Quin gold and some indigo, just a variety of colors. I'm just looking for kind of a grayish color. Okay. I'm going to dry my brush and just kind of pull this up and see how much control I have. I want it to get lighter to darker as it moves down, right? Let's see if I can start carving this out a little bit. Tighten my easel a little bit so it doesn't move on me. Now, again, I'm going to put my hand in here, right, like that. It's going to get a bunch of handprints, but we know we can fix it later. So I don't mind making a mess. Have you noticed? Now you see how I was all loosey-goosey in places, but now I'm getting all tight again because I got it. There's parts where I want to carve out and be real tight, and I got a nice pointy brush. I can really do a good job of carving it out. There, look at that. So, and now I need to get darker, so I'm going to add some of that. Here's some phthalo blue. Here's some indigo. Add that to the mix. Get it a little darker down here. Line a little bit there. Whoop. All right. And I got two brushes. I got one brush to drop in the color. I got my other brush to soften the edges. Integrate it. Pull it up. All right. Let's clean that edge up a little bit. So again, trying to show the control of the artist. Come on, Dave, you have control, you have control. There you go. Okay. So now we're starting to see it starting to take shape a little bit. It was really loose, but now and because, you know, you saw me spatter all that water and the back of it's wet and it's just been crazy, but look at how much control I still have, right? Look at, I got a nice straight line there, miracle. Because I'm very aware of how much moisture is on my brush. I do a lot of test marks. Look at that nice line I can get with that sharp line with this miracle brush. I'm not endorsed by Escoda. I just like the brush.
Do you know where you can purchase an Escoda product?
You can get it on their site, I think, unless there's some strangeness with all the stuff going on right now. But you can also get this on Amazon. So I got it blurring out a little bit, but it's fine. You can still, it still reads like it's fine. I don't mind, obviously, a little bit of craziness because that makes it look loose and spontaneous, you know, versus really tight and rigid. I'm just going to drop in some color here. We might drop in some more later. As long as I got it on my brush, might as well just throw a little on there.
I have a question regarding, this is Susan again, your gray. I notice you're spontaneously mixing to get the gray. This is what I do, but I've bought Payne's gray and I'm going, oh, you don't just take the stock color like Payne's gray to make your gray. You look like you mix what you have. And is, you know, do you want to comment on that?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I love Payne's Gray. I was using Payne's Gray exclusively, and now I'm using pretty much Indigo exclusively. I mean, in making my grays, I add, like you said, a nice gray that when I first started learning was everybody was using burnt sienna and ultramarine blue and creating their grays. And then you can make it more a little more cooler or warmer if you add more alizarin. I'm sorry, burnt sienna, more burnt sienna versus the ultramarine blue. And then I was using a lot of Payne's Gray to get it even darker. And then I don't know, I just like the color of indigo. It's just a kind of a pretty bluish dark color. And I just, there's nothing wrong with either one. I just started, playing with that one. I could use either one. Yeah, and it'd be fine. So there's all this texture on this side of the silo. So again, I'm taking my brush, I'm going over to my towel or my sponge, and I'm drying it to get, broken edge, dry brush marks, and just, whoops, maybe too much over there. And getting some skip marks over on this side where it's, getting some lights kind of skip. I'm taking a thirsty brush that's been wet and then dried and trying to blur out. So now I got a variety of edges. The dry brush are not all hard edge, but I got some soft edge, lost edge. And we'll get some of that gray back over here. Now we don't see any skip marks over here, so we'll just darken that all up. There we go. We can use our finger and break it up more. There we go. Okay, now actually, this whole side of the silo, I'm going to zoom in on the picture. There's a beautiful little highlight up there. Depends on how crazy you want to get. It's kind of too green. That's a little better gray. Trying to get some of that highlight coming down. Okay. Let's see, what do we want to do here? How about like that? So that nice pointy brush, I can just get the finest little lines. Take my other brush, my thirsty brush. So you see really loose in some areas. Now I'm getting like, oh, this Dave is really boring and tight. Look at him. But, so some areas tighten up. Just trying to give a feel, the roundness of that with all the highlights on there. Taking a thirsty brush, lifting out a little color. Okay, that gives the effect. Now this is all in shadow. Let's just do that. We can come back to it later. It's all in shadow. There we go. All right, then we got it. Whatever happens on this side of the barn, it's got to be happening on this side of the barn. Wrong brush. Gotta get the pointy brush. So I got tape on one. It's supposed to tell me that that's the ugly brush. Sometimes I mess up. All right, zoom out. And, I'm getting kind of slow now and tighter as I keep playing. So David, whenever, I'm not sure how your demonstrations usually go, but I can take a break whenever. It'd be nice to kind of keep painting for a bit, but just letting you know that I'm flexible.
It's up to you whenever you like to stop, just to take a break.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll continue with mostly the mids, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and throw in the darks. No, this is something that the teachers never tell you, which is super helpful, is leave little slivers of light sometimes to show separation. Like you want to say, okay, that's a mid and this is a mid, but I want, you know, this will be a little lighter, this a little darker, and I want to show some separation. I leave little sliver of light I'll do it again here, just to, let's see, like right here, I'll just like, there's this bottom part of this roof and then there's the top part. So there's a little sliver there between those now, right? And then, but I don't just leave it a solid line, I break it on purpose. So just having a couple little slivers will show a separation between the two. All right, or if I do, let's say this roof is gonna be orangey color, there's a little bit of a dry paper. So this is not, you know, it might leak a little bit, like I'll make it pop, I'll make it integrate right there. I purposely broke it, right? But there's a dry line, very slim sliver line that's separating those two to show a separation, like, oh, there's two different shapes there. It's not all just one big shape, right? I don't know. That's something that I noticed people doing, and they never told me about that. I thought, wow, that's really helpful. Why don't they tell us that?
So when we were up in Grand Marais painting plein air, and I know that was like your first time you were thinking, I think you were saying that it was the first time you were doing plein air. It seems like that you've gotten less colorful. Is that because of the plein air? I remember your paintings being very super colorful. And
yeah. You know, yeah, I've kind of, you know, who knows what I'll be painting like next week, but I went from, like you said, the paper that I was working on up there was arches. So it was a different style, different feel and style and different effect that I get with arches. And now I'm working exclusively Fabriano. So that's a little bit of a difference. And then also, yeah, you know, I really love like Andy Evenson's paintings where it's more,
realistic colors, because
yeah.
do you think that happened because of the plein air?
You know what, it was part of the plein air and part of like looking at his paintings and other people's paintings and thinking, gosh, mine are really really colorful. And I just wonder, if I could, you know, like here's the actual painting. I wonder if I can do a better job of actually giving the impression of the actual scene versus kind of this a really colorful interpretation. And so it was more kind of a challenge. It's not that I don't know, I like both, but I was kind of like challenging myself to say, okay, can I interpret it more like some of these other artists and give it more of its true color and effect? So yeah, it was kind of that kind of a challenge. And I don't know if I'm going to stick with that or not, but that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Very cool. I just thought it was very interesting to see what you had done.
Yeah. So that's kind of what happened. And I'm constantly, like I said, playing, and I'm trying to learn as I'm teaching a course, but I also, I don't think I'll ever stop learning. Like I said, I saw these other artists and I thought that I admire some of their work, and I thought, mine, I wonder if I could do that. And so I kind of challenged myself that way.
I would suggest to people who haven't never plein air painted that it does help you out a lot when it comes to trying different things. I mean, myself included, Grand Marais was the first time last year or the year before that I had gone up there, and it really changed a lot of things too for myself included. Just that you see things differently when you actually see the object instead of you always using a photograph.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite artists is Joseph Bukvik. And And he said, you know, if you want to improve your painting skills, you got to get outside and paint. So I said, well, okay, I want to improve my painting skills. Outside and paint. And I think I think it was a combination of a lot of different things that's really kind of helped me, you know, get to this point. I think the painting outside has been helpful. So I'm using the side of the brush again. What else was I going to say? So look at now it's not wet up here, right? And I'm using the side of the brush so I can look at this beautiful texture of the trees that I'm getting, broken edges. And then I take the tip of it and maybe I'll take some of that darker mix and just get a nice fine point of it to suggest some branches coming through there. Maybe I should zoom in on that. Nice thing about teaching online is you can really zoom in and show people. So the first thing, again, what I did, let me just start over. I used the side of the brush and just pulled it up, and I'm working on a rough paper. So it just gives this broken edge, right? Whoops, let me just move it over a little bit. That broken edge. Maybe I'll even spatter some water on it. Just because, you know, we don't want to look too tight. I mean, look. And now I'm going to grab that like a coffee consistency or milk consistency paint and just letting the tip of the brush kind of come through there and letting it hit some of those wet areas and integrating, and in other areas hitting dry paper, and it's giving me, so I'm getting a variety of edges. When it hits the wet paper, I'm getting soft and lost edges. And when it's hitting dry paper, I'm getting hard edges. So I just got a variety of edges. I got a variety of values. It's just super fun, and just a super fun way to paint, right? Get over to the edge here, and then maybe I'll just get a little bit higher so it's kind of coming in, just thinking compositionally, kind of coming in at an angle. Spatter some water. Is this fun? Is this helpful?
Very.
A question. How long does it take you to do one of these paintings outside? Because the light changes so much.
Yeah. Like if you look at this reference here, look at by the time I finish, look at the glow on that field, and the red. You know, it would have been a completely different, not completely different, but it would have been a lot different, right? So yeah. You know, how long it takes, it depends. No, so look at the little sliver. I left a little sliver there to suggest the you know, the roof line right there, and maybe I'll leave another sliver right there to suggest, you know, something right there. It depends on the subject really, and you know, how cold it is and how many mosquitoes are after me, you know, all kinds of things, you know. Yeah, it really does. Yeah, sometimes you know, it's really fast, and sometimes, you know, I'll just be out there forever. It seems like all day kind of thing, just putzing around with it, you know. So yeah, and it depends on the subject, how complicated the subject is. So this subject is not too hard. That's why I chose it. Let's do something that's not hard. So a little bit of a negative painting around that and around this, and we can come back in with some darks. Now that edge, need to get that edge to be similar to the other edges. So let's break that edge up. Zoom out a little bit before I forget, get you guys out of the picture. Let's see. Sure what I'm doing. Let's see. Just kind of trying to suggest some things. Maybe there's a roof of something right there. There's another. Barns, they got all kinds of stuff just laying all over the place. Who knows what all that stuff is? dropping a little thicker. I'm dropping a creamy paint into a, what do you put in? So I started with coffee. Remember I said I'm using a coffee consistency paint. So coffee, think of coffee very fluid, very runny. And what do you put into your coffee? Put a cream, right? So you put a thicker pigment into your thinner pigment and let that blend in, and you get different values and different effects in there. Look at that beautiful effect. It's just the miracle of watercolor. I don't know why anybody would work in any other medium. Usually, see, I can say that because this is all on Zoom, but if I said that in person, I'd get a few tomatoes that thrown at me. I make fun of, like, when I go to the Minnesota Watercolor Society or something, I'll say, yeah, I like to paint in watercolor, like, because I like it be easy and have a good time. If I wanted to work hard and not have any fun, then I'd work in oils or acrylics. And boy, oh, they get after me, boy. No, I'd love to try all the different mediums. It's just lack of time, right? Okay, hopefully that's, and obviously I'm kind of getting a little darker and darker as I'm playing. All right, let's throw a little color into the field, and then we'll take a break and then put in darks. Does that kind of sound like a plan?
That's great.
So
I find that now that I'm a watercolorist, though, that I'm going to like acrylic and oils and stuff, I tend to do those now like watercolor, though. So I do my oils like watercolor and I do my acrylics like watercolor. And actually, I think it's a good thing.
funny. Yeah, everybody I talk to, they say, oh, you paint in watercolor? Man, that's the hardest medium. If you'd be so good at oils or acrylics. And I took a class that was like an introduction to working in oils and acrylics, and I had the hardest time. So I think it's kind of like what you start with, right? If you're just really used to a very fluid medium, and then you go to something like oils and acrylics, it might be kind of hard. And then if you start the other way, it might be hard the other way. Because when I tried painting in oils and acrylics, I was like, it's not coming off my brush. It's like I touched the canvas and nothing was moving, and I was like, man, am I working with glue? What is this? What's going on here? Yeah, so it was. I'm trying to get this a little darker so it shows maybe the highlight on the fence and some of the other stuff back here. I got to think about what's on the other side of the fence. You don't want anybody looking over there. Okay. Let's pull some of that color since I got it here. Pull it over. Okay, that's fine. All right, now let's just soften that up, drag it out, just like we did last time. And a lot of my painting technique is really, it's called just pray to the gods of watercolor. It works out. I was like, oh gosh, come on. This is just praying that something will happen and work out. That's my technique. All right, let's find those perspective lines. There we are. All right. And then let's muck it up. darker out here, lighter as it moves in. Trying to get a variety of edges and things. Pull this out, pull some out, kind of again reacting to what happened. Get some dry brush is nice, a little sparkle of light hitting it. And then, you know, there's going to be like these grasses. We're going to start to see the grasses as it comes forward, and it's going to be some shadows and things we're going to start to see. So let's get a little darker. So here's an ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna and gouache and some indigo, whatever. Let's get a little darker here. And I see some kind of darker areas, shadow areas over here, thicker pigment. I'm not seeing a lot as it moves out here. Got two brushes. This is the fun creative process. We can kind of react to what's happening. And out of there. That's it.
Are you just moving the paint around now, or are you still putting paint on?
Yeah, when you see me go over to the palette, you know I'm grabbing paint. I'm pretty much just throwing water on and moving it around, but it's constantly changing based on where I'm at. I'm you know, and what I did, you know, on plein air is probably different. You know, I'm kind of having to react to what is happening today on this canvas. But I'm also thinking, okay, we're seeing less detail as it goes out here. We're seeing more detail as it comes into the foreground. So I want more texture and things over here. And it's really pretty wet right now, so I don't think I can get a lot of like little individual grasses and things. But actually, while this is still wet, drop in some more cream because it's starting to get pretty light. I want it a little darker here. So I'm just dropping in some creamy color into what I've already done. Oh, who dragged their hand across that right there? It wasn't me. All right, and then let's give it a shot though. Let's see if we can just pull up some squiggly marks here. And we'll, when it starts to dry, so when the sheen is starting to go away from the paper, especially if you're using creamy paint, then you can get your palette knife or something like that, and you can scrape out some suggestions as well. Right now it's soaking wet right here, so it'd be pretty hard to get any like dry brush or anything like that. So I'm gonna have to do that later. So I can come back and do it again, come back and do it later.
Should we take a 5-minute break now?
Yeah. So it's already pretty much almost done. So yeah, a little 5-minute break, and we'll just do a few little details.
Let it dry.
Yeah, we'll I'll let it settle. I don't think I need to dry it. I'll just let it settle for a little bit. Yeah. So see you in 5 minutes, or how do your breaks work? Do I?
Yeah, no, just you can do whatever you want. We're just gonna take a break here. A couple people are gonna get up, and people at home, get your new cup of coffee or whatever, and we'll be back in 5 minutes.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
I'll stop recording just for a second, or pause it. I'll pause the recording.
When I started, I took that workshop with Gordon McKenzie, the Canadian artist, who kind of turned me on to watercolor. But a number of years later, it must have been like, I don't know, 10 years later or so, I looked him up just to see what he's been up to, and he was going camping up on Lake Superior in Canada with some artists in the summer, and he was inviting people to go up with him. And so I took advantage of that. And I said, yeah, I'd love to join you guys. So I went up, I went out west and did some plein air painting. And then I went around all Lake Superior, did some plein air painting. So I've been plein air painting for a while, but definitely changing my approach as I go. Anyway, so I met Gordon McKenzie and some other artists up on Lake Superior in Canada. And man, I was like watching every move he made. I said, okay, it takes I was writing 3 sips of coffee and then ultramarine blue. I just took it as like, this is like a free workshop. I just want to learn from this guy. He's so good. He's a really nice guy. So Gordon McKenzie is somebody you might want to check out too, if you're interested in, looking at different artists and instructors. He's super, super nice guy and really good artist. And he paints with a lot of different approaches, kind of like what I do. By the way, if you're interested in this kind of approach, there's a workshop I'm teaching online in January. And I'm going to be teaching, some paintings that I did plein air, like this one. I'm going to break it down, and this one, and talk about, the skies, the different consistencies of the paint. We're just going to do a fun kind of a holiday scene. And then we're going to do a city scene, a lot of spattering water and spattering paint. And that's in January. And you can check out my website if you're interested in that. And I'll be teaching online throughout the year, different approaches. Okay, so back to this. So we've pretty much got everything, lights in there. We got our mids. And so now towards the end here, it's pretty much, you could almost say it's done already, but we could start to tighten it up even more and identify it. I haven't touched it. I haven't dried it. Still got my thumbprint right there. Oh, now it's got a bigger thumbprint. There we go. But maybe we can throw in a few more darks and start to identify it a little bit more. I noticed looking at my reference photo on my iPad, it's a little bit different than this one here, because this one, when I was painting, it had a nice cast shadow right there where we don't have this. And so this one's got a bright light hitting this. There's no light here. It was all in shadow here. So there's some differences, right? Based on the time of day, and the shadows that are going across here are different. So there are some differences as far as the light, but it's still pretty similar. So there's going to be a few differences. Okay, so where should we start? Kind of got out of my flow here. We'll wet down the palette a little bit. It's getting too dry. Got to have my palette is like a swimming pool. It's just soaking wet. Like when I plein air paint, I have to carry it like this. I could never carry it like a suitcase because it's just a pool of water. It's just a mess. That's one drawback of plein air painting, is that it's just the mess gets everywhere. Okay, let's identify some of these cars a little better. So I just kind of now that as I move, whoop, killed that one. Now as I move into the tail end of this, I'm getting tighter and tighter, and usually using smaller and smaller brushes and getting a little more careful. It gets maybe a little more boring because it's not so loosey-goosey. So I'm getting some dark greeny color with the indigo and the quin gold, and suggest some, and let's just, I don't know, I'm just going to suggest stuff. Railings or the fences, maybe it's parts of the car tire we're seeing through the fence.
For reference, is it your name that's your website? Is it just David R. Smith?
Yeah, sorry, yeah. If it's all right, it's David. If you Google David Smith watercolor, I'll pop up. But I can show you my website too while I screen share too. Maybe after I throw these darks in, I can just show you where it is in case anyone's interested.
That way it'll be on video, it'll be recorded so they can go back and look at.
Yeah, thanks. Am I going to get a copy of the recording, or is that going to be sent to me too?
I usually just put it on Facebook, and you can pull it off of Facebook.
Oh, okay.
I can send it to you too. I can do that too.
Okay. let's see, what should we do here? I think, let's make these a little, this door that's coming out a little darker. There were some trees that are in front of this. That's what I was doing down there. There, that makes more sense. If, you know, when this dries, we could even get even darker. I try to make it like a head of somebody right there. It's really small. But in case anybody gets a magnifying glass, I go, what is that? Oh, that's somebody's head. But when this dries, I could suggest little windows in there and get it even darker. Maybe. Identify that side a little bit better. So I'm trying to touch things up, and let's see. Trying to identify the side of this a little bit better. There's some tree there, bushes. If they start getting too tight, just spatter some water on it, that'll loosen it up.
Is that your Escoda brush?
Yep, same brush I've been using the whole time. Yep. Okay, getting nitpicky there. Okay, let's jump over here. Now, in the other one, this is dark and this is lighter. On this one, I'm going to make this dark. Somehow I want to separate this from this, right? So there's got to be a shift in values. But I'm going to follow the reference photo, which is telling me this is darker than that.
You can go ahead and ask again, Carol. I had you muted.
So I would like to know why there are so many cars at that barn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, good question. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, why are there all those cars? Let me show you. Let me show you exactly why. Hold on a second here.
It's the story I'm interested in too. You're telling your story with your painting.
Yeah, here, hold on here. Okay, so there was another, yeah, here's the other side of the barn. Whoops, I zoomed out.
Oh.
Cars, they were cows.
Cows needed their cars. No. So this barn, I don't live out in the country. I live actually in a kind of a, I don't know, second, third ring suburb of Minneapolis. And there is a historical house that they preserved next to me. That was that house that you kept seeing me paint. But there's just subdivisions everywhere. And I just happen to live on a few acres, which is really rare in Eden Prairie, next to a huge park. And next to this park, they preserved that house and this barn. They preserved it as kind of historical. And this barn is actually, they've made it into like a big community party house. Like they have dances up there and open it up. It's really nice. And these cows are not actually cows. They're statues. They're just, so it's, and the cows, they're like painted like daisies on them and polka dots, and they're all colored. And I thought, well, this will be a good way for me to practice cows because they're not going to move on me. They're going to. And then, and so all the cars out there are because, they're having all these dances and stuff and parties up there all the time.
Right. I knew there had to be a party somewhere.
What was that?
I knew there had to be a party going on someplace.
Yeah. That's where it is, right next door. Yep, to my place. Yeah, and and the cows need to party there too. So they got it's really convenient for them. And but yeah, so all these majority of those paintings were taken right next door. I just happen to have this preserved historical house and barn that they converted, and then there's a big park with a lake and canoes and so it's just like, for plein air painting, it's like, man, this is great. I don't have to travel too far to find some interesting subjects. Wow, why did I choose to paint this?
Do they
Little-
have art exhibits at this particular historical area?
I don't know if they've had art exhibits like at the barn or the house and stuff. Right now at the house, there's a club called like the what is it? The Optimist Club or whatever, and they are selling. They have a big like Santa there and Christmas trees they're selling and stuff, and it's for donations to a charity for kids. And so they're using it for that right now. Yeah. So they do different functions there, and different groups will I guess rent it and stuff. Okay. So what I did there is I just got my really small brush out and I got the details across there with the small brush. Let's see. All right. A couple like that. And then there's the lamp here. I should have. There's a lamp out in front of this thing. Okay.
Just to let you know, we have about 12 minutes left.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, no, we can stop anytime. So, but yeah, 12 minutes. We'll just put a couple of shadows. So there's a cast shadow for this here. I went a little too far. Maybe we'll just darken up this side a little bit, connect it to the shadow. Okay, maybe get dark underneath some of the roofs, things like that. Eaves. We could add some, we could separate this a little better with some darks too, if we wanted. And then tie it into what we've already done. Let's see, I don't think we need a whole lot more out here. We're not trying to draw people's attention out here. Some doors and things, maybe a door. Some
And people who want to sign up for your thing in January online, you do that on your website?
Yeah, yep. They can just do it right on my website. I'll show you the link right here in a second. Let me throw a couple darks in here, and I think it's pretty good. Actually, I kind of like it kind of blurry down here, and not bringing everybody's attention down. But let's muck it up. So now we can get some dry brush mark again. Now that it's settled a little bit. And maybe we can pull up some grasses and things. And we can maybe use a palette knife. And scrape out. See how that scraped out that? Let me zoom in. Just a suggestion in the foreground of some grasses. And we could spatter some paint too. Like, Just because it's not loose enough, we gotta get a little spatter of paint on there. There we go. Now we got everything. We got spattered water, we got spattered paint, got scrapings, we've got everything. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, great.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Thanks. Oh, man. Well, thanks, everybody. I'll, before I get tuned off here, let me jump over. I'll show you, let's see. In case anyone's interested in anything coming in the future or those free videos and things. Let's see. Let me show you where you can find. All right, can you guys see my webpage now?
Yeah.
Margin?
Okay, so yeah, this is so here's my webpage. So if you just Google David Smith, I'll pop up. But if you want to go to dsmithfineart.com, there's my webpage, and then if you want to check out upcoming workshops, you can go to the left there and click the workshops tab, and there's the one coming up in January. I haven't posted a bunch of them yet, but there's a few of them on there. And if you're interested in that January one, you can I got it actually listed right there on the left. You just hit that and it shows the paintings I'm going to focus on. And you can just click the buy now if you're interested, or if you want more information, just scroll down. And if you're interested in, like in my material, the material list, if you're interested in any of the materials I talked about, you can just hit that and scroll down, and you'll see all the materials that I typically use. Yeah, and if you're interested, I keep on doing workshops. If you're interested in subscribing to the newsletter, just go to the left there and you can subscribe, and you can always unsubscribe too, anytime you want. Yeah. So thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice job, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, hope to see you guys. Have a great time. Thanks, David, for the invitation. And yeah, send me the recording if you get a chance.
I will do. I'm gonna stop the recording right now.